Well, something's been stealing our crops. We've tried watching the fields, we've set traps, but all of them have come up emptier than a hungry otyug. The traps all get set off with nothing in them, and we keep finding odd items laying around after. Like these little metal balls and some trash. There was a frying pan that one time. At this rate, we're not going to have enough harvest for the winter. Is there anything you can do?
Hello, and welcome to Tuna's Tales. This time on Pondering Monsters, we'll be covering the Astralsupial from Kobold Press's Tome of Beasts 3. This possum-like creature is a medium-sized beast and is a native of whatever astral realm may exist in your setting. They have decent hit points and an astral pouch that allows them to pull out and throw random items. So just what are they doing stealing crops from farmers in a realm that they aren't naturally from? If you want to know, then stop playing possum and we'll start looking at this encounter. As our adventurers walk along the road leading to their destination, they see a group of farmers milling about and chatting against a nearby fence. As the heroes get closer, the farmers turn their attention towards them before calling out and asking if they're some of those adventuring types. As the heroes respond that they are, the farmers approach them and ask if they can help with a little problem. Their crops are being stolen in the night, and they can't seem to find any culprit. They've tried setting out traps, but when they notice that they've been set off, there's never anything in there. The only evidence that something has been around in the fields are these weird items like ball bearings and frying pans. One farmer even pipes up that he's seen some large-sized clawed footprints in the dirt, too. Ever the heroic types, the adventurers take the job and get to investigating. They spend some time looking around the fields that evening, and eventually they happen across a trio of medium-sized possum-looking creatures. These creatures are busy stuffing some crops into a pouch on their bellies, but as soon as they notice that they've been spotted, they make a break for it. As the heroes give chase, these creatures lead them through the nearby woods and eventually to a simple cave system. As the party pursues the plant pilferers into the cave, they are met with a whole den of these creatures. Multiple families, just trying to survive, are living in here. As the heroes look around, they hear a crackling tear come from across the other side of the cave. They watch as a portal opens up and a couple more of these creatures come tumbling out before it closes. As they move to inspect the area, they hear this sound again as another portal opens up somewhere else in the cave. This time they can see what looks like a starscape through it. This continues a few more times before the party is finally able to get a glimpse of the culprit, a wizardly-looking fellow who, upon noticing the adventurers, simply tells them that these creatures are their problem now, after which he promptly disappears. With all these strange creatures trapped outside their natural habitat that are just trying to survive, what will our heroes do?
Wait. I've got some questions, Tuna.
Oh, hello, Red, and yeah, sure, ask away.
How did the heroes know to find these creatures in the field in the first place?
Good question. The farmers should have called out the most major clues already, and everything should point to the fields. Plus, the fact that there isn't really anything new for the adventurers to find means that the party just needs to hang out in the fields quietly and keep an eye out for these creatures.
Okay, and then the party chases after the Astralsupials?
That they do.
Well, how does that work?
Easy. You run a chase sequence. There are rules for this in the DMG, but for me, I like to do things a little different than how it's suggested there.
Why?
Well, because some of the movement speeds that characters are capable of can end a chase sequence before it begins. So I like to run a skill challenge instead.
What's that like?
Usually, I have my players roll initiative and I just put whatever they're chasing at the top of the round. Then I have a player tell me what they'd like to do to try and catch up to their quarry, and if they have a skill in mind that they can justify using, then I tell them to roll it. Or I tell them what skill to use if they don't have one in mind. They already know that no skill can be repeated by a single character, and then I use the usual X number of successes before X group failures to pass the test. I also like to add complications that can occur at the top of every round.
Ooh, complications?
Complications indeed, Red. You can come up with something on the fly, or there are some good tables that can be found on page 253 of the Dungeon Master Guide.
So, the party chases after them and catches up to these creatures and their families. Won't they just fight them? Doesn't that seem a little dark?
That's a good point, Red, and yeah, it is. If you're worried about that, though, then I'd say that if you have a group that you know is going to want to play Exterminator here, then just ditch the whole family bit. Just make it the ones that the party was chasing, and that's it. Combat without feeling too bad about it. Otherwise, you can run it as designed and try to get the party to help the beasts in question here.
How?
Well, for me, I'd try to shy the party away from combat by leaning into the descriptions of how the thieving ones are passing out the stolen food to some of the younger ones.
But what if that doesn't work?
Then you run combat, except only have a few of these creatures fight back. And even then, they only fight long enough to buy the rest of the ones in the den time to escape. Your party can then potentially be at fault for releasing a non-native and possibly invasive species into the environment.
What if my players are really insistent on combat, though? Like, chase down the ones that got away insistent?
If that's the case, then I'd stop combat and talk with your table. As I like to point out, the GM needs to be having fun too, and has every right to call out the table's actions if the party's choices are making them uncomfortable.
Alright, last question then. How can the party help these creatures and the farmers here?
Well, the farmers just want to stop their crops from getting stolen, so anything that fixes that issue should work, right? For the Astralsupials, though, the best way that I can think of that helps them is to find a way to return them to the astral realm.
But that might take a while. What can they do in the meantime?
Well, short term, I guess your party could try to convince these creatures to work with the farmers. They're fairly smart for a beast, smarter than a horse, actually. And if you have anyone in the party that can speak with animals, then I'd allow them to just work out some temporary agreement where the farmers get some help in the fields for feeding these creatures. Then, when the party has found a way to send the Astralsupials back, they can come back around this area and send them home if they want.
And if there isn't anyone in the party that can talk to beasts?
Then have anyone that wants to roll an animal handling check to try and communicate with them. They're smart beasts, and I think that the idea of a farm with an Astralsupial workforce could be a pretty neat concept.
I guess it would be.
Was that all, Red?
Yep, no more questions.
Well, thanks for piping up. What do you say we see what happens when we put this whole thing together?
Okay.
To start this whole series of events, simply put some farmers in front of your party. After asking the PCs for help, the party can get to staking out the fields. While searching the fields, I'd say stealth rolls would be required so that they don't scare off the Astralsupials before finding them. This creature's passive perception is 13, so a stealth roll of 14 or higher seems reasonable to me here. Speaking of passive skills, if your party is looking around, they'll need to roll some perception checks themselves. Again, I'd use the Astralsupials' passive score for stealth here to set that DC. That being the case, a perception check of 15 would mean your PCs have spotted them. After being spotted, the creatures will begin running towards the nearby forest.
As you sneak around in the fields, you push some corn to the side and see a medium-sized possum-like creature pulling ears of corn off of some nearby stalks before stuffing them into a pouch on its stomach. Suddenly, you see two more of them appear in your field of view, and they spot you. They hiss at you, and all three go running off towards the nearby forest. As the party follows these creatures, they find that they are occasionally pelted by odd items during the chase. In fact, if you're using the chase rules I outlined earlier, then after 3 successes of around DC 14 or 15, the party can catch up to the creatures just as they enter their den. The den is a small cave that is large enough for up to 10 to 15 Astralsupial families. If the party all fail before one of them gets 3 successes, then the Astralsupials escape. For now. Otherwise, if your PCs catch them and follow them into the den, and you're going for the let's help them approach, then the party can see how many there are, as well as being able to see the ones they were chasing earlier, who are now passing out the food they had stolen. As they're looking around, your party sees a portal open up at the far end of the cave, and a couple more Astralsupials come tumbling out of it before it quickly closes. As you look around the smallish cave, you see what appears to be several families of these creatures living here. You spot the ones that you had chased earlier, who are now emptying out their pouches and passing out the food they stole to the other families. From across the den, you hear a tearing sound as you see a portal open up and a couple more of these creatures appear to be tossed through before it closes again. If they go in and investigate the spot that the portal opened up at, they will see nothing in that area. Somewhere else in the cave, though, another portal opens up, and this time the party can see what looks like stars just beyond it as more of these creatures come tumbling through. The portal closes and reopens as many times as you feel necessary. Each time, more and more of these creatures appear. When you're ready to end it, then the last portal is where your party can see the wizard tossing them through. As you hear the tear of a new portal, you spin around just in time to see a wizened old man tossing a couple more of these creatures through the portal. As you lock eyes with him, he just huffs and says,
"They're your problem now."
From here, your party is now in a cave with some amount of these creatures and a decision to make. Do they just leave them be, move them somewhere else, convince the farmers to help with this? Give your party some time to think about what they want to do and see what they come up with. If it's reasonable, then go for it. If anyone in the party can speak with animals, then this is a good time for them to put their skills to use. If they do so, they can potentially reason with the Astralsupials, as they're fairly intelligent for beasts, and reach some sort of agreement where they work with the farmers while the party looks for a way to send them back home. If you have a PC that wants to go this route, then if they can speak with beasts, it seems reasonable to just let them do so. No check required. If a character still wants to try this but can't speak with them, then a DC 14 animal handling check seems like a good alternative. And that's all there is to it. If you're looking for a way to send your party to an astral realm or want them to have some allies when they get there, then this can help you do just that. But what if you have a higher level party? How can this challenge them? Let's take a look at scaling and see what we can do to make this harder. When it comes to increasing the difficulty of this encounter for your party, the combat approach is the easiest to scale. Astralsupials are CR4, and just adding more of them can make things difficult enough. For a 10th level party, having 5 of them fighting back while the others escape the den makes it a hard encounter, while you're going to need closer to 10 to get the same results for a 15th level party. That many, though, causes an issue with the action economy and might push this encounter closer to deadly. However, at 15th level, chances are someone in the party has the ability to just send the beasts back to the astral realm, so combat seems even less likely to me at this level. If you want to make talking to these creatures harder, then you can bump any skill checks up to around the DC 16 range or higher. Also, if you don't have someone in the party that can speak with animals, then you can make those checks harder by just giving them disadvantage on the rolls. Finally, you can bump up the difficulty of the chase by increasing the DCs in the same way, by adding in more hazards or complications to the mix, or by requiring more successful checks before the party can catch up. And with that, you can now make your party say, "What?" as you present them with a plethora of peculiar pouched possums from space. Of course, this encounter really works best if you have access to the Astralsupial stats, but not everyone may have that. If you want to pick them up, then you can do so by going to the Cobalt Press store that I linked in the description. I'm not affiliated or sponsored by them in any way, I just really like what Cobalt Press puts out. If you want a more proper write-up of the rules for chases that I laid out earlier, you can get them for free on my Patreon, linked in the description. Current and future patrons, however, will be able to grab info about a wizard NPC who's made a home in the astral realm and that I created for you to use with this little encounter. Of course, if you have questions about this encounter or just want to tell me how it went when you ran it at your table, then leave a comment. Also, if you've seen some of my older encounters, then you'll notice that I tried something a bit different in this video. If you have thoughts on how it came across, then I'd love to hear what you think of it. Otherwise, if you're curious what monster book I might be pulling from next, then why not subscribe and do that thing with the bell so you can get notified when it goes up. As usual, thanks for letting me talk to you all, and until next time, keep pondering!